Hello, I am Kiri Pritchard-McLean. I am a stand-up comedian and writer and also a local authority foster carer. I think the thing that inspired my partner and I to become foster carers is we really love kids, we really love family. That's really important to us. But we didn't, and neither of us had a desire to have biological children. And also with our careers as well, he's an actor, I'm a stand-up, we were always so busy. And for a long time, it just felt like, well, family wasn't something we could have then. And then finding out about foster caring and that it could be flexible, which is something I didn't realize, it suddenly opened up this whole new opportunity to, nurture and support young people, which is the attraction, I guess, to parenting for us. But also it meant that we didn't have to sort of quit our careers or move. So yeah, it sort of felt like it's everything that we wanted about parenting, but not having to do it 24/7, which I'm sure sounds really cynical. But I also think there'll be people who have to parent 24/7 who are like, that sounds quite good, actually. My partner and I have been fostering now for just over 3 years, maybe coming up to 3.5 years. And we are approved for 4 and over. And we provide short breaks and stays, so anything from a couple of hours to a couple of weeks. We are approved, as I said, for 4 and over, but I think the youngest person we've had come to us is 12. It tends to be teenagers that we get having sort of stayovers and things like that. It's really interesting when it comes to juggling being a comedian and a foster carer, because for a long time I thought that if I wanted to, I thought maybe I would adopt one day, but if I thought, if I were going to have children in my life, I would have to quit what I do. And that was really scary because that's how I make my money. And, the nice life that we thought we could share with a young person, well, we'd have to leave a lot of that behind. There would be suddenly a lot that we couldn't provide. But finding out about fostering, that you can do it around your workload, certainly with providing respite care like we do. And that it's kind of like, when I'm explaining it to my friends and they don't understand, I say it's a bit like a 0 hours contract, and you kind of tell them what you can do, and then they'll go, great, well, there's a young person who needs someone at this time, and here's a referral, do you think you can meet their needs? And actually, what I didn't expect for fostering to be was flexible. So it means that we can still have this amazing relationship with young people who keep coming back, which is lovely, and forge relationships with new young people just around what we're doing. So I'll have very busy years when I'm on tour, and I will still be fostering on the days off that I have throughout that. And then I'll have a more chilled out year when I'm writing the next tour, although who knows when that one will be. I think my partner will leave me if I do another tour too quickly. But next year will be really nice because we've got a lot more time, which means that we can have a lot more young people come and stay for us, and for longer stretches as well. I think the thing I found hardest about juggling being a stand-up and a foster carer initially was the fact that I couldn't tell the young people what I did. I couldn't even use my real name with them, which is something I kind of talk about in my comedy show. And that's really difficult because I always felt like I was holding back. And when anyone's lying about anything, whether it's, a big lie or a surprise party, the whole time you're like, don't say that, don't say that. And it's at the front of your head. And, there's so much about me that is only interesting because of the job that I do. And there's all of a sudden you can't share stories or anecdotes or experiences with these young people. So that was actually the hardest juggle at first, is when I was being Louise, the foster carer. Whereas now, since doing the show, and the social workers in my local authority have kind of signed off the show and they get it. They're like, we want you to be Kiri, which is really lovely. So now, the young people might ask what I do, and I tell them I'm a stand-up comedian who's been on the television, and they don't care. So that's been very nice, actually. But it means I get to be my authentic self, which also means I get to be funny and not sort of second guess myself. And yeah, I think the difficult was juggling sort of 2 identities. That was really tricky at first. I think becoming a foster carer has made me be much more mindful about the kind of stories that I'm telling and whose story I'm telling. So I've always talked about, or used my comedy shows to talk about something I really care about that I think people aren't talking about. So I've talked about, I was in an abusive relationship. I did a comedy show about it. I was, trying to open up conversations. My first comedy show was about being a woman in comedy and how everyone told you that you couldn't be funny and how much of that had you internalized. So I always talk about big sort of things. And so when it came to writing this show, I think something I had to work really hard on and be really mindful of is, well, what's my story to tell and what is the young person's story to tell? And it is not my place to, take the pace or platform of a care experienced person. But what I was aware of from especially talking to other foster carers is that often they can feel a little bit overlooked in the conversation, and like the representation is missing, because we do have representation of families who are adopted and in popular culture, still very small, but that's burgeoning, and we have some brilliant care experienced people who have achieved great things and are telling their stories. I think when it comes to foster care, it's still part of the nature of the job is being a little bit hidden, standing a little bit back. So it's been really nice to meet other foster carers on this tour who feel a bit seen. So yeah, I think it's changed me because I also understand that that's really valuable to everybody, right? Feeling seen is something that all of us need. And again, I can't and wouldn't provide it for a care experienced person. It's not my place, but maybe with foster carers I can, we can all have a laugh about how awful the assessment is. I've had lots of my friends who have, amazing careers talking to me about foster care and whether they'd be able to do it. And they remind me of a lot of me before I started doing it, where I'd be like, I couldn't because of all these reasons. And I'm going to steal a quote that I've heard lots of people in sort of recruitment for fostering say, which is, I think, one of the best written jokes I've ever heard, which is, don't rule yourself out, we'll rule you out, which I think is so funny. But it's true. It's a bit like when I, would speak to my mum and dad about when they had us and they were not very prepared, and, none of us were planned. My father loves telling us, but you make do, right? You make do. And it's a little bit like that you can almost never be prepared. My friend asked me what it was like the first time we were bringing a young person home with us. And it reminded me of all my friends who said, when they bring the baby home from the hospital and you're like, I can't believe anyone's let us do this. It's a little bit like that where you're like, right, we're on our own now. The stabilizers are off. So that is scary, but you will find it's okay. And you know why you're so lucky? If you're a foster carer, and one of the things that appeal to me is there's a team around you at the end of a phone to call you, to, support you, to ask questions, to be a sounding board. And I think that's a really privileged way to enter a relationship with young people, is to have a whole group of people around you supporting you and willing you on to do the best. So don't worry about the demanding side of things. If you've got a demanding career, that means that you can multitask. It means you're a good communicator. It means that you've got patience. It means you've got resilience. It means you're inventive. All of those things are going to make you an absolutely fantastic foster carer. And also it will give you, I think, a renewed perspective. And often, like, I'm really lucky with my job. I get to meet people who are brilliantly, successful, but also like one type of person who's doing all right, who's probably living in North London in a big expensive house. And actually, it's really important that we all know what the world actually looks like for most people. And it is tough, and it gives you a greater sense of empathy, I think, and to see how hard other people have to work to achieve stuff that we take for granted. And I think that's really important. Fostering is incredibly rewarding. From our experience of doing it is, I am also very aware that we, because we take the young people for maybe 2 weeks at the longest. So, and they always say that 2 weeks is the honeymoon period. So we have everyone when they're firing on all cylinders. So, I know that especially long-term foster carers do amazing work with young people who are dealing with an awful lot. I would say, do you know what? Obviously, I love my job so much, and it's so validating and so rewarding. And when you tell a joke you've worked really hard on and it gets a massive reaction from an audience is incredible. But telling a joke to a teenager who doesn't want to find you funny, but still finds you funny regardless of that, is like, that's a huge win. And my partner, again, he's like, he's a brilliant performer. He's so funny. But watching him, when one of the young people, it was two lads who came to us, teenage lads, and one of them turned and said, "This is the best food I've ever had in respite." And I saw my partner like grow like 3 inches. He was so proud. And it was so weird that, like, if you said to him, what would the highlight of your year be? Like, probably when I got to play this venue, or when this script got commissioned, or this. But I know it will be in that moment being told that we've got the best food of any respite place. He was absolutely thrilled, which is hilarious as well, because he put about half a bottle of ketchup sauce on it. So I don't know how it tasted anything anyway. I think since becoming a foster carer, my views on family and community have definitely altered. I think I just have a great awareness. I now see, looking back in lots of my history, like, well, there was probably lots of, in particular, kinship foster care going on, but you don't see it, or it didn't have the same name. There's not an awareness of it. There wasn't representation of it. You know, again, of care experienced people, there were definitely people I recognize now were care experienced, but that was a bit sort of, you know, secretive, and that may have been their choice. It may not have been. And to see my whole upbringing in a new context and the people I knew and have interacted with has been really important. But also, I think community is such an important, engaging word to use around it, because, you know, I'm a local authority foster carer, which means that I, you know, between me, my partner and I will be supporting kids in our local area. I believe in my local area. I certainly believe in the young people. I set up a comedy school because I want the kids to thrive in that area and be able to do what I do if they want to. And what better way to show young people you believe in them than like, come live with us and, you know, let us support you in whichever way that we can. And also, I think, in an ideal world, because like one of the things that made me not want to have children biologically is because I was aware I don't really have a support network in terms of family, and we don't really live, you know, in a world where you have 3 generations and your grandma's around the corner and your mum's over there, and, you know, there's that whole support network. And, you know, there'll be women or men, you know, who wouldn't work and would stay at home. Like, you got to get straight out to work again, and I just felt like I couldn't do a good job of being a mum with that lack of support and having to get back on the road and do my job again. And what I can do with doing, you know, our respite foster care is I can also have the bandwidth and the space to support the brilliant mums around me as well. And like, it is a community, and it's so cheesy, isn't it? It takes a village, but it does. And if you don't have that network already, which I'm lucky I do, brilliant mums who are so good. Like, sometimes I'll have a young person who just wants to hang out with other young people, and we'll bring all the kids over and we'll do a load of pizzas, and they're just running as a pack after about 5 minutes. Is absolutely joyous. But like, I've got those mums to call on and use as sort of sounding boards, and most of them are single mums as well, so they're doing every single job under the sun, under that one umbrella of being a single mum. So I really recognize that it's community that we raise children in, and if children are falling behind and, you know, they're not having the outcomes that we expect, then that is a community failing, and it's something that we can all do our part in rectifying, I think. How I came across fostering was I just heard an advert saying that they desperately needed local authority foster carers. And so I sort of followed it up. It was an advert on the radio. And at the time, I didn't even realize there were different options. But a beautiful thing about doing this tour is I speak to so many people kind of in the industry in different ways. And that's can often be people who are employed in school, pupil referral units, or in schools to support care experienced people. And it's really interesting, their perception of the different types of fostering. And I'm really passionate about local authority fostering because I think, you know, our money goes further, right? And it's our money, and we all want to protect young people. So let's just make sure that you know, the tax money that we're paying is going as far as it can. And in my perspective, from my research, you know, it's not going to a private equity firm like it can do. You know, it's not going to a pension company or stakeholders. It's going, your money from the community is going back into the community and the young people. And I think if people knew the extent to which young people were being used for profit by organisations, I think they would be really hurt and really upset. So I don't think people don't have an awareness, and it's something, until I started, you know, becoming a foster carer and kind of finding out about this, I had no idea the extent that it goes on. So I would always be an advocate for local authority foster care.